Sports, news, smack, Rome. Only on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back to Rome. My guest tonight is an NFL insider for CBS and CBSSports.com. He has been all over the draft coverage for weeks now, so he's here to give us some more insight. Jason Canfora is my guest. Jason, good to have you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Great to be here.
All right, good to have you. Yesterday, you saw the Vikings and Rams both get really active, take big swings. Who do you see looking ahead to tonight for round 2 and round 3, maybe moving up to take a big swing themselves?
You know, there's a lot of chatter. There's certainly, again, as we saw in round 1, teams that want to move down, but how many will move up? I was surprised there wasn't more movement yesterday. That kind of tells me that people continue to see value here, so I don't know if there's going to be individual players that teams feel like, hey, we got to go up and grab that guy. There's some chatter about the Jets moving up to get a quarterback, but I don't think Jacksonville's taking one at 33. So then, you know, you see, would Philadelphia take one? And even if they did, would it necessarily be New York's guy? So Geno Smith may end up falling right to the Jets. I'm not sure there's going to be that much movement, but there certainly are teams like Detroit that are very interested in acquiring more picks and moving out of that top portion of the second round if they can pull it off.
All right, so in terms of that chatter, you've done this a long, long time. As you're looking at this thing, do you feel like there's more smoke screens, more BS, a whole lot of talk, and maybe flat-out lies? Is it like that this year, and if so, how come?
I think it's always like that. This year, I think everything's a little more heightened because this draft didn't have those, 10 or 12 guys who you could plug in at the front end of the top, front end of the first 16 picks and say they're definitely going, and this is definitely our first 5, and this is definitely our second 10. That really didn't exist, and there were such varying opinions on these kids. I mean, some people, Ryan Nassib, could he have gone 8th overall? It was at least a consideration. Will he even go in the first 3 rounds now? I mean, no one knows. I mean, some teams are like, he's a mid-round guy. So because of all that, I think the climate was right to float a lot of stuff out there because with everyone kind of being in the dark and no one knowing what too many other teams were doing, I do think that it probably escalated the hype and the smoke a little bit.
So go back to Geno Smith. Why has he dropped as far as he has?
Teams that needed quarterbacks decided they didn't have to take him there. And it's about finding the right player at the right spot. And, they did their homework. Oakland certainly thought about it. They ended up taking DJ Hayden, who's someone they really liked, the corner out of Houston. But, Geno was in that conversation. I don't think too many people would have been shocked had they gone Geno Smith there. So, it's just difficult. There's these rebuilding programs and all these new general managers. Some don't want to go out and maybe swing and miss at a quarterback, don't want to take that risk, play it a little bit safe. The real meat and potatoes of this draft was the linemen. You saw a lot of them come off the board early. That's where, more of the stud players or potential stud players were coming from. And now everyone knew the skill players aren't really going to come up until the second round. There won't be a lot of quarterbacks. There won't be a lot of receivers. There won't be a lot of tight ends. There won't be a lot of running backs on the first day.
All right, so what about Smith? Is he going to have a short wait tonight, or could he drop once again?
I think it'll be relatively short. I mean, I can't see it being a plummet all the way through the second round. I mean, this kid, there's some knocks on him and what have you, but he was seen by most people as the best quarterback in this group, and quarterback is still a position of need for a lot of teams picking at the top there. So I can't see him falling out of the top 50.
I think it's not a big surprise that only one quarterback went in the first round, but it's a pretty big surprise that one guy was E.J. Manuel. What do you think about the Bills trading down and using that pick to get that guy?
You didn't have to take him at 16. I mean, you could try to trade down or make that original trade back further if at all possible, or try like heck to trade back again. And if you can't trade back again, maybe take a more valuable player there. And then look, if he's a franchise quarterback, he'll be more valuable than anybody else in this draft. But given the risk involved and given that no one else was making moves for quarterbacks, if he was your guy, you could have taken someone else at 16 and then use that second-round pick, move back into the first round, and make sure you get him at the end of that round. So, I think it was a bold move and maybe a little more bold than it needed to be.
All right, so how long does Manti Te'o wait tonight before he hears his name called?
Could be a little ways. I mean, Chicago really, liked him, felt like he could be a helpful football player for them. Minnesota GM Rick Spielman's very, very comfortable with him, and he was in consideration with their 2 picks in the 20s. And then again, obviously, they made that trade back and ended up taking Patterson, a wide receiver, instead. So, he has an affinity for Manti Te'o. So I think someone will take him in the second round. Baltimore picking at the very end. They have favorable reports on him as well. They're comfortable bringing him in to their locker room at the right price. So I don't think he'll slip out of the second round. Those 3 teams are all, serious contenders for him.
I thought it was pretty interesting, Jason. Luke Jokel was really upset that he didn't go first overall. Yeah. Talk about Kansas City. Why did they pick Eric Fisher over Jokel?
Just in the end, they felt he was a little bit of a better fit. They've got a situation going on there with Brandon Albert. They'd love to trade him to Miami tonight, pick up a second-round pick, and then obviously, you got Fisher at left tackle. But if they can't get rid of Brandon Albert and he's on that franchise tag and they're going to pay him $10 million, he may play left tackle for them this year, in which case Fisher's a little better fit on the right side. They felt like he could be a temporary fit there if need be, and then still their left tackle of the future. You know, just going through the process, evaluating him as a person and a player, he's the guy they felt more comfortable with. But it certainly was 1A and 1B, and those two were lumped together, and then obviously there was going to be a little bit of a drop-off after that.
One last thought. This Thurl Simon story is really something. A draft prospect out of LSU, arrested for public intimidation. You know, we're talking about a guy who basically played the "Do you know who I am" card, allegedly. What is the latest there with him?
I spoke to his agent, Peter Schaefer, and he was pretty fired up about it and said, you know, he talked to 20 people who were down there who saw this happen. They completely disclaim the police report and some of the allegations made in there, and they're talking about possibly suing that local police department based on how they treated Simon. So, you know, it's obviously a he said, but they're being proactive. They feel like they've done their due diligence investigating the situation, and maybe they'll be firing back.
Do you know who I am? Yeah, you're a guy who's going to go in the 5th round if you're lucky.
Sports, news, smack, Rome. Only on CBS Sports Network.